In 1587, a ship carrying over 100 men, women, and children landed on Roanoke Island, determined to build England's very first permanent colony in the New World. But just 3 years later, when a supply ship returned, they found nothing. Every single person had vanished. There were no bodies, no signs of a battle, no remnants of a struggle for survival. The only clue left behind was a single cryptic word carved into a tree: Croatoan. For over 400 years, that one word has echoed through history, a haunting symbol of one of America's oldest and most chilling unsolved mysteries. What truly happened to the lost colony of Roanoke? Let's rewind to the summer of 1587. The mission was led by Governor John White, a man with a vision. He brought with him a diverse group of 117 English settlers, not soldiers, but families. There were farmers, craftsmen, men, women, and children, all dreaming of a new beginning, of free land, and the promise of a prosperous life across the Atlantic. They landed on Roanoke Island, a patch of land off the coast of what is now North Carolina. Among them was Governor White's own daughter, Eleanor Dare, who was pregnant and would soon give birth to Virginia Dare, the very first English child born in the Americas. This wasn't just an outpost. It was meant to be a home, the foundation of an English empire in a new land. But the dream quickly soured. The New World was not the paradise they had imagined. It was a rugged, unforgiving wilderness. The nights were filled with strange, unsettling noises from the surrounding forests. Their food supplies, which were meant to last until their first harvest, began to dwindle at an alarming rate. And their relationship with the local Native American tribes was precarious, to say the least. While some tribes were willing to trade, others were deeply suspicious, and tensions simmered just beneath the surface. It became clear that without more supplies and reinforcements, the fledgling colony was doomed. Recognizing the dire situation, Governor John White made a difficult decision. He would sail back to England himself to plead for immediate aid and supplies. He promised his daughter, Eleanor, and his newborn granddaughter, Virginia, that he would return as quickly as possible, within a few months at most. It was a painful farewell, but he believed it was the only way to ensure their survival. He left his family and his colony behind, setting sail for England with a heavy heart, fully expecting to be back before the seasons changed. He had no idea it would be 3 long, agonizing years before he would see Roanoke Island again. Back in England, White's plans were shattered by events far beyond his control. England was on the brink of war with Spain. The mighty Spanish Armada was preparing to invade, and Queen Elizabeth I ordered that every available ship be commandeered for the war effort. No vessel was allowed to make the perilous journey across the Atlantic. White was trapped, frantically trying to find a ship while his colony was left to fend for itself thousands of miles away. Month after month he lobbied, he pleaded, he bargained, but his efforts were fruitless. The war with Spain dragged on, and with every passing day, his fears for his family and the settlers grew. Finally, in the summer of 1590, 3 years after he had left, White managed to secure passage back to the New World. The journey itself was fraught with danger, but all he could think about was what he would find. As his ship approached Roanoke Island, his heart pounded with a mixture of hope and dread. But as they drew closer, a strange and eerie silence seemed to hang over the island. There was no smoke rising from the chimneys, no familiar sounds of life from the settlement, no figures on the shore waiting to greet them. The place felt empty. When White and his men stepped ashore, their worst fears were realized. The settlement was completely abandoned. The houses had been carefully dismantled, not violently torn down or burned. The heavy cannons were gone, and the colony's boats were missing. It was as if the colonists had methodically packed up their belongings and simply walked away. There were no human remains, no skeletons, no graves. There was no evidence of a battle or a struggle. It was a ghost town. They searched the entire area, calling out names, hoping for any response. But the only answer was the sound of the wind rustling through the trees. Then, they found it. The one clue the colonists had left behind. Carved into a wooden post of the fort's palisade was a single word, Croatoan. The letters were clear and deliberate. White knew this word. It was the name of a nearby island, now known as Hatteras Island, which was home to a friendly tribe of Native Americans led by Chief Manteo. Before he had left for England, White had agreed with the colonists that if they had to move, they would carve their destination into a tree. He also told them that if they were in distress, they should carve a Maltese cross above the name. There was no cross. This suggested that they had left willingly and were not in immediate danger. A surge of hope filled White. His family and the other colonists were alive. They had simply relocated to Croatoan Island. He had to go there. He had to find them. He ordered his men back to the ship, ready to sail the short distance south. But just as they prepared to weigh anchor, the sky turned black. A ferocious hurricane, one of the infamous late summer storms of the Outer Banks, descended upon them with terrifying speed. The storm raged for days, battering the ship, snapping its anchor cables, and nearly driving it onto the treacherous shoals. The crew, already weary from the long voyage, refused to risk another landing in such dangerous conditions. Their supplies were low, and the season was late. With a broken heart, Governor John White was forced to abandon his search and return to England. He would never see America or his family ever again. And so the mystery began. For centuries, the question has persisted: what happened to the 117 souls of Roanoke? The most straightforward theory is that they did exactly what the carving suggested. They went to live with the Croatoan people. It makes sense. They were facing starvation, and joining a friendly tribe that knew how to survive in this environment would have been their best option. Over time, it's believed they would have assimilated, intermarrying and adopting the local culture, their English identities fading with each passing generation. Some early English explorers in the 1600s reported hearing tales from Native Americans of people with light eyes and European features living among certain tribes, lending credence to this idea. But other, darker theories emerged. Perhaps they were not welcomed by all the local tribes. It's possible they were attacked and wiped out, either by a hostile tribe or even by the Spanish, who had a presence to the south in Florida and saw the English colony as a threat. Yet, this doesn't explain the lack of bodies or the carefully dismantled settlement. A massacre would have been messy, but the site was clean. Another possibility is that they attempted to sail back to England on their own in one of their small boats. A desperate gamble that would have surely ended in disaster on the open Atlantic. Or maybe they simply succumbed to the harsh realities of the wilderness. A devastating disease that left no time for burials. Or widespread famine that forced them to scatter into the woods, where they perished one by one. The mystery took a bizarre turn in the 1930s with the discovery of the Dare stones. A series of stones allegedly carved by Eleanor Dare herself began to surface. The first stone, found in 1937, told a grim tale of the colony's final days, describing sickness and death and attacks from hostile tribes, ending with the news that only a handful of survivors were left. Over the next few years, dozens more stones were found, creating an elaborate and tragic narrative. For a moment, it seemed the mystery was solved. But soon, investigations revealed that the stones were almost certainly a clever and elaborate hoax, created by a group of people looking for fame and money. The stones were discredited, and the mystery of Roanoke fell silent once more. In recent years, modern science has reopened the case. Archaeologists using ground-penetrating radar have found signs of a potential second settlement inland, suggesting some of the colonists may have split off and moved away from the coast. Even more compelling is the work of the Lost Colony DNA project. Researchers have been testing the DNA of local families who claim descent from the Croatoan tribe and the Roanoke colonists. They have found genetic markers, specific European haplogroups, that suggest a tantalizing possibility that the colonists did survive, that their bloodlines did merge with the native population, and that their descendants are still living in the area today. Their extraordinary history hidden within their very DNA. But despite these fascinating clues, there is still no definitive proof. No graves have been found. No definitive English artifacts have been located at the Croatoan village site. No shipwreck has ever been discovered. The fate of the Lost Colony of Roanoke remains one of history's most enduring puzzles. They stepped off a boat into a new world, full of hope and ambition, and then simply vanished from the pages of history, leaving behind nothing but a name carved into wood and a mystery that has captivated and baffled us for over 400 years. Were they absorbed into a new culture, their legacy living on in ways we are only just beginning to understand? Or did they meet a tragic end, their final moments lost to the unforgiving wilderness? We may never know for sure. Sometimes the most compelling stories are the ones without an ending. Thanks for watching. If you're fascinated by historical mysteries like this one, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the unexplained. See you next time.